So yeah, previously we were talking about.
Good
Am I
evening,
audible?
Praveen. Yeah, you are. Good evening.
Good evening. Okay. So in our previous session, we saw like how do we write the test case. We have also seen one demo of the tools known as CodeGen tool. In terms of our in terms of our agenda today, we'll be going to start JavaScript from today onwards, and we'll see like introduction of JavaScript and setting up the environment to work with JavaScript. And we'll also start writing a basic concept of JavaScript. We'll try to understand the basic concept of JavaScript from today onwards. Okay. So before we start, I just wanted to show you one good news that we have from our previous batch that recently finished. One of member is there. There are a couple of them. The recent one is this member who have recently got a job. We have finished like last week itself. Not even last week. It was like on Tuesday we have finished the previous batch session. And from that, one of our student got a job in Chennai, and you can see like this boy was someone who was trying the job from the last 9 months. This one was someone who was trying the job from the last 9 months, and he was not able to do any kind of things in terms of the job and all. The course have been completed recently on Tuesday, and he has got a job in Chennai in one of our organization. His CTC was pretty less. He was in UAE earlier, and then he came back to India, was struggling to find a job, and he got 140% hike on his current CTC, whatever he has drawn last time in India. So this is just to show you people like there is something like that you can get from the courses, and will definitely be helpful for everyone. Like whenever you go through with the course, you practice it out, and then let's see what is happening in terms of the job and all. Because I see the job market is booming for the Playwright. Though you will find like they are asking for Selenium, but then still they are asking like you need to have understanding or work experience on Playwright, right? So around 60% of the job market jobs that are available on different sites, I've seen like they are asking for Playwright. Few specifically are asking only for the Playwright. Few are also asking like Selenium, but they are also asking for either Cypress or JavaScript. So this is again growing in the market, job market, like in the second quarter of this year, second quarter of 2025. I am expecting there will be a huge number of job in terms of the Playwright. Okay, now let's get started.
So
To
the one who got
understand.
the job, Praveen, he got experience. He went to interview with an experience.
Yes. He was working on a manual testing.
Okay.
He do not know like even Selenium, but he has given 2 years of experience for Playwright.
Excellent. But he didn't work
And he
in
has
Playwright, but he mentioned in the CV then.
right.
Okay.
He mentioned in the CV that he worked for Playwright. He worked for
Okay.
Playwright for 2 years,
Okay.
and then he went and cracked the job. And that was his first interview again. So
Fantastic. I
for
think it's a
Playwright.
very good motivation for everyone here in the class.
Right.
Thank you for letting us know.
Great. Okay. So yeah, let's get started in terms of JavaScript. What all the things we'll be learning over here. What will be helpful for us in terms of the JavaScript and all. So if we talk about the syllabus or the course content that we have for the JavaScript, it's something that will start with the introduction and installation of JavaScript environment. And that used to be again a part of demo, which we have completed already, but we'll show you like where did we complete that installation and all. Second is the day one, which will complete of the recap of installation, which we'll be doing today, the recap of installation. And then we'll be going for understanding like a basic program, like how do we start writing the program, how do we start generally writing the JavaScript. And If time permits, we'll also try to see what are different types of variables that we can what is variables and what are different ways in which we can declare the variable in JavaScript. And later on, we'll go for checking like data types in JavaScript, like different types of data types that we have in terms of JavaScript, operators, statements, looping concept, functions, then arrays, string, object, and class. All these things we'll see as a part of our JavaScript course. Now, before I start anything over here in terms of JavaScript, just wanted to know how many of you have already worked on any other tools and technology earlier? You can probably raise your hand, so that will give me the count over here. And in that way, I can understand that what is the strength that we have over here who have not worked and we have already worked on. It can be any of the tools and technology. Can be Selenium, can be any like
Automation,
record and
right?
playback as well, right? Any automation tools.
Okay.
Okay, so I see there are 6 members who have already worked previously on some other tools and technology. Okay, there are 7. Any other, anyone else that you have worked on? Right, so whoever is new, that's fine. Whoever have worked on, just raise your hand over here, so that will count them. Okay, so currently we have 7 members. You can lower down all your hands. So currently we have 7 members who have previously worked on some or other tools and technology. Okay, apart from that, we basically have around I'll just lower the hand for the people so that I can see the counts over here. We have total 20 members, I believe, including me, 21. So out of these, like around 30% of the people have already knowledge on some or other technologies, but 70% of the people are like either completely new or they have worked on some manual testing things. Okay. Okay. So why I was trying to get it so that I'll have to go in that way to make everyone understand, to consider everyone at the same page and go in that space and that speed as well over here. Okay. So today we'll start with the JavaScript. First, we'll try to see what a JavaScript basically is. So JavaScript is a programming language. As other programming language, JavaScript is also a programming language, which is basically a dynamic in nature. So there used to be 2 kinds of programming language. Whenever you try to learn any programming language, there'll be 2 types of programming language. One is static programming language, and other will be a dynamic programming language. Now, what is difference between static and dynamic is, so whenever you try to define something in terms of a static programming language, example, Java, in terms of dynamic, which used to be like Python, JavaScript, then we have TypeScript, we have Python. These are like dynamic programming language. So what happened in terms of static programming languages, whenever you try to write a code, whenever you try to write any kind of code on the editor, if you try to do some kind of mistake over there, it will directly throw you an error that you are trying to do some kind of mistake over there. Example, a pretty simple example. If you are trying to write a Java code basically needs you to end all the steps by a semicolon. So you have to end all the steps. So let's say if you are trying to declare some variable, let a equals to 10. This is how we declare a variable in Java, not in JavaScript. So it needs you to end the line by ending with a semicolon, and then only it will be able to identify that what you have done over here. Okay, if you somehow miss to enter this semicolon, at that point of time, inside the editor itself, it will throw you an error. That means at the compilation itself, it will throw you an error, not even at the runtime, at the compilation itself. At the compilation, if something is throwing you an error, that is known as statically typed language, static language. Okay. And something which will be evaluated at the runtime. It's something which will be evaluated at the runtime. Runtime means whenever you start execution of the program, execution of the code, and if there are any kind of issues in your code, at that point of time, whenever it throws you an error, that is known as runtime programming language, also known as dynamic programming language. In terms of a dynamic programming language, if you do some kind of mistake, that will be evaluated at the runtime, not at the compile time. Whereas in terms of statically typed language, that will be evaluated at compile time. Now, what I mean to say is, I'll give you a demo over here. So do not worry. What I'm trying to do over here is, um, let's forget about what I'm trying to do. Just try to understand. So I'm trying to declare a constant variable, okay, in terms of JavaScript. So in constant variable, what is constant variable? A variable which will always be constant in nature. A variable which will always be a constant. That means the value of the variable will never get changed. Something we have declared, let's say a equals to 10. So we have declared a variable a equals to 10 over here. This value will always be a fixed value. The value of a will never get changed. That is known as a constant variable. Okay. Now what I'm trying to do is I am trying to change the value of the variable, which is a equals to 20 over here. Okay. So what we are trying to do is we are trying to declare a variable which is a equals to 20. Okay. Now in this case, what happened over here is, as we are trying to declare a constant, so it is saying that in terms of a constant, any of the programming language will give you the error on the editor itself, any of the programming language. Okay, but just wanted to show you that in terms of a dynamically programming language, this value will be evaluated at runtime. This value will be evaluated at runtime. What is meant by runtime is, so let me create one JavaScript file, as it is considering as a test file, so it is not throwing some kind of things. Okay, let's create a folder over here inside the root file. Let's create a folder and we'll give the name as JavaScript. Inside this, I'm trying to create a folder. Just give the name as test.js. Okay. Now this is a JavaScript file that we have created. You see what happened over here is, we have created a constant. This is a constant variable. As I said earlier, a variable which will have a fixed value for the lifetime of that particular variable. That will never get changed. That is known as a constant. A variable for which the value will never get changed is known as constant. Okay. And for constant variable, the value, you cannot change any value. What we are trying to do is we have declared a variable, and that variable value we are trying to change over here. Again, as I said earlier, do not worry how do we declare this variable. We'll discuss in our session today. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to change the value of a from 10 to 20. Okay. And whenever we try to declare any variable, whenever we try to basically compile, whenever we try to run any JavaScript file, we have to run by using Node. Why Node? Because in our previous session, we understood that Node.js is a JavaScript runtime environment which will execute our code that we write in terms of JavaScript. Node and then provide the file name. So before that, let's move to this particular folder. We are currently in this folder, so we are trying to move to JavaScript folder that we have created over here. So I'm simply trying to move to a JavaScript, and from here we can run by saying node. How do we run a JavaScript file? By just saying it as node and then file name, whatever the file name that we have given over here. So we'll give it at test.js. Now see, this did not throw us an any kind of error over here. This did not throw any kind of error over here. TypeScript is not a dynamically typed language. TypeScript is statically typed language. So it did not throw at the time of compilation, but as soon as we start running the test case, as soon as we start executing this code, it throws us saying that A equals to B. Assignment to constant variable is not possible. Right? So what happened over here is it basically had given us an error at the time of runtime. That is what known as dynamically typed language, which will be evaluated at runtime. At the time of execution, if it is throwing something that we have done a mistake, that is known as dynamically typed language. Now let me change this value to TS. TypeScript is a statically typed language. Java is a again statically typed language. So TypeScript is again a statically typed language. I'm just changing the file name to .ts. And now you can see that it is throwing us an error saying that cannot assign to A because it is a constant. And this is known as statically typed language. And that is what the difference that we have in terms of static language and dynamic language. Static language will throw you an error at the time of compilation itself. That means at the time of writing the code itself. Whereas dynamic language will throw you an error at the time of execution of your code. Okay, so that is what we were talking about. There used to be two types of programming language. One is statically typed language, another is dynamically typed language. In terms of that, JavaScript is a dynamically typed language. JavaScript is a dynamic language which will be basically evaluated at runtime. Anything that we write in terms of JavaScript, that will be evaluated at runtime. Also, it is asynchronous in nature. Now, what is meant by asynchronous? I believe we were discussing yesterday regarding the asynchronous and asynchronous. So asynchronous is something where it will not guarantee you that each whatever the lines of code that we have written will generally execute one by one. Okay, so that will not be there will not be a guarantee in terms of asynchronous programming language. JavaScript and TypeScript both are asynchronous programming language, which will not guarantee you that whatever the lines of code that you have written will be executed in a sequential order. That means first line will be executed first, second line will be executed second, and so on. The good thing that we have in terms of JavaScript and TypeScript is JavaScript and TypeScript will handle this kind of behavior internally. If you are trying to write a code which is pure JavaScript or pure TypeScript, that means you are not trying to use any other things other than JavaScript and TypeScript, then it will handle by self. What it will handle by self? The asynchronous nature. That means internally it will convert the code into a synchronous manner, which will run first this line of code and then it will go to this line of code. But when we combine this with any other tools and technology, example that we have combined yesterday using Playwright over here, right? So what did we do over here is we have combined this JavaScript code with a Playwright code over here. At that point of time, this will JavaScript itself will not be able to handle the asynchronous nature, and that is where we had used async and await concept in our all the steps to make the code to run in a sequential order. That means whatever the code that we have written, now it will guarantee us that the first line of code will be executed after completion of first, then only it will go to the next. After completion of this step, then only it will move to the next, and so on. So that is known as a sequential order, a synchronous process. Okay, but whenever we are trying to write pure JavaScript and TypeScript language, that will internally take care of the asynchronous process as well. Okay, so JavaScript is again a asynchronous.
Sorry to pause you there, Praveen. So do we call this as a promise in the JavaScript and TypeScript, the one which you
Right.
just explained? Okay.
Right. So that
Thanks.
is this terminology is a bit complex. That is why I did not use over here. So there used to be a promise, as you have already mentioned. So there used to be a promise for each and every steps. Whenever you try to write any lines of code inside JavaScript or TypeScript, there used to be a promise. What is meant by promise is Promise means that the line of code that you have written will return something for you. It will return something for you. Either it will fail, or it will pass, or will be in the pending status. Okay. In terms of terminologies, in terms of technical terminologies, it is known as success. Promise have been rejected if it is failed, and then it is in the status of pending. Okay, so promise will have a 3-step: fail, pass, and pending. That means success, accepted, with second fail, rejected, and third pending. If it is still doing some kind of process, that will be in the pending status. If it have been successfully executed, that means the promise that it has returned over here is successful. And in this case that we have seen, that will not return any kind of that will return a promise of rejection, because it is saying that constant is not allowed to be again reassigned some kind of values. Okay, so at this point of time, or at this line, the promise have been rejected, and that is what known as a promise. Every lines of code that we write in terms of JavaScript and TypeScript will return something, either a success or a failure, or let's say if it is taking a time, let's say if we are trying to get some kind of value from an API, at that point of time, there might be a chances that it can take 2 to 5 seconds or 10 seconds, depending on the load of the data. It can take those number of seconds or milliseconds of time. So at that point of time, that will be the process will be still in the pending status. That is what known as promise in JavaScript and TypeScript. Okay. Now let's move to the environment setup of JavaScript. So what do we require as a prerequisite to work with JavaScript? What do we require a prerequisite to work with JavaScript? We have already gone through this thing, and we have also already installed this. One is Node.js that we require, and we require a greater than 18 version inside our system. You need to have a system, either a Windows operating system or Mac operating system or Linux. And inside that, we need to have a Node.js available in system. And second we require is an editor, which we'll be using over here as a Visual Studio Code. Okay, so these two things are required to work with JavaScript inside our system. And all these two things we have already installed in our previous session by going through with the browser. Search for Node.js, search for Visual Studio Code. It will open an executable file, and from there we can click on next, and at the end, that will be finished. And we also know that how do we check the Node.js have been installed or not? For that, we can simply type inside the command line or terminal. You can go, you can open a command line or terminal depending on your operating system, and type node space minus version, and this will return you the version that it has installed in our system. And for second, we do not have to validate whether it has installed or not. It will automatically launch this kind of this application inside our system. Okay. Now let's. So as we have already started these things, as we have already installed JavaScript inside our system, let's go ahead and start working with the JavaScript from today onwards. So I'll just change it to JavaScript over here. I'll just change it to JavaScript over here as a file. Generally, whenever we start writing any kind of programming, or whenever we start learning any kind of programming, the first thing that we learn inside a programming language is that how do we print something? That means how do we basically print on the console or terminal some kind of things that we are trying to print, like let's say hello JavaScript or hello world or any other things that we want to check as a first line of code. How do we print the value in on the terminal, on the console level? Okay, there are different languages. I believe like a few of you have already gone through with few of the other languages, like let's say Java, in terms of Java, we simply do it as system.out.println. System.out.println is something which is used to print the value on the console, right? Whatever the value that you see, let's say testing. So whatever the value that you see over here that we provide inside the println function, it will print that particular value on the console. Now, what is console? Console will be something like this. If you see, this is known as a terminal. On this terminal itself, it will provide you the value whenever you try to execute this. Whenever you try to execute this, this will open our, this will display on our terminal. Okay, this is in terms of Java. If you have worked with Python, then there is something known as print. Simple. In terms of a Python, you can just say it as print, and this will print the value. In the same way, in terms of JavaScript and TypeScript, we have a command known as, where are we trying to print the value? See, every types of method that we have in JavaScript and TypeScript is an easy and easily understandable. It's in something which is in the plain English language. Okay, so what we are saying is, we are trying to say that print something on the console, right? Print something on the console or print something on the terminal, right? So in the same way, we have one method on the inside a JavaScript and TypeScript known as console.log. Now, if you see this one, it says that console is something where taking the help of console, we generally use to debug some kind of things. And that is where you will find one option over here, debug console. Okay, so on the debug console, this is basically helpful for us in terms of debugging some kind of code as well. Okay, and then log is a function which is available on the console, which generally does a printing of the value on the console. So whenever we try to say that print something on the console, it has a simple language which is on the console, log some kind of value. Let's say hello JavaScript. Okay, so what it is saying is, if you read it in a proper language, it says that a console class with methods such as console.log, console.error, and there are different kind of things that we can print over here. There is a method on the console. Console is a class. Where will you find this console? So console you will find basically on the window level. So if you open any kind of window, let's say this is a window, right? This is a browser window. On this browser window, you can right click and go to inspect. And in that, you'll see a console over here, right? So this console is also the similar console that we are talking over here. So you can also write it over here like, let's say console.log something test over here. You can also check it over here and it will return us the value, which is test. So this is what known as console. Console will be something where it will display some kind of result. Inside the window as well, you will find some kind of console. Whenever you try to run something, and at that point of time, if you are trying to print by using console.log, you will also be able to see on this window console as well. I'll show you again in our later session whenever we try to take the help of browser. Okay, so this is saying that on the console, log, that means print whatever the value that we have given over here. Okay, so this is how we print, this is how we log on console, so whatever the value that we are trying to print, either a part of programming or a part of test execution in terms of a Playwright. Okay, so now this is a complete pure JavaScript file. Whenever we try to execute the JavaScript file, we have a command known as node and then file name. Simply, we can just say it as console and then file name to run the JavaScript file. Run JavaScript file. Why do we say file? Because in terms of JavaScript, to work with JavaScript and TypeScript, we do not need to create any class. As you might be aware of, if you have worked with Java, then you might be aware of that. Even if we have to print something on the console, we have to create a class in Java, right? But that is not mandatory in terms of JavaScript and TypeScript. We can simply log by using console.log and run the file by saying it as node space and then file name. You have to be in the folder, whatever the folder that you have created, you have to be in that directory. As I have written earlier, cd and then directory name or folder name. So I'm currently inside the JavaScript over here. And then from here, I'm trying to run node space file name. What is the file name? I'll change it to first program.js. And we'll try to give the file name is first program.js. Okay, program. As soon as we hit enter, whatever the value that we have written over here, it will try to basically execute on the console. Here it has failed because we have given the file name as wrong over here. This is not a file program. This is first program as a file name. So now if you see, it has printed some value, whatever the value that we have printed over here. Now you might be having a question like, let's say if I have to print multiple values, let's say if I have to print again 45 over here, let's say if I have to print again 45.56 or something which is true value. So how do we do that? In terms of JavaScript, if you are trying to print a multiple values at the same time, if you are trying to print multiple values at the same time, you can separate all the values by a comma over here, or you can also use a plus. If you use plus, this will be converted as a concatenation value. And you can also use a comma to separate each and every value over here. So now if you try to execute this, you will see something which is hello JavaScript. As I said earlier, if you use plus, then that will concatenate the value. Concatenate means merge all the values inside a single word. So now if you see over here, hello JavaScript, and inside this word itself, everything have been merged over here. So to separate it out, to display each and every value on the console over here, we can simply put it anyways, like the value will be displayed over here. However, we have written over here, whatever the order that we have written over here, but you can see in the along with the space over here. That means it is saying this is one word, this is another word, this is another word, and this is another word. So whenever you are trying to print something on the console, having a multiple values over there, we can simply use a comma over here. Okay, so this is a general things that we generally try to check as a first line of code whenever we try to go for running any of the JavaScript, any of the scenarios in terms of any programming language. Now let's move towards a basics of again JavaScript, which we'll be starting with variables, which will be starting with the basic things that we have in terms of any of the programming language known as variables. Okay, so let's go ahead and check what is variables in JavaScript. For that, let's again create another file over here. For each and every concept, I'll create a separate file, and that will be created inside this JavaScript folder. So this JavaScript folder that we have created is for JavaScript practice purpose. And whenever we move to the Playwright, we'll be writing all the tests inside the test folder. Okay, so I'll just give the name as variables.js. Now, few of you have already worked on different programming language. Also, all the sessions, whatever we'll be going through it, every sessions will be interactive. Okay, so I might ask you people few of the questions. Even if you know or do not know, just answer something, try to answer. If you do not know, that is well and good. If you know already, that is again well and good. Okay, so I'll try to ask you like basic questions whenever we try to go for to check what is let's say example variables. So what is a variable in general? Can anyone try to explain like what is variable in general? Any one of you, like whoever have worked earlier or whoever is learning new things.
Declaring or assigning values to a variable, and a variable should not start with numbers or special characters. And we can initialize any kind of variables, that is, it will accept the integer or
Okay, I
character.
understood. Great, great, great.
Basically,
Thanks.
giving a name to a person kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's a
Right,
memory location where we store the values and data.
right. Yes, great. So every one of you, or whoever have given the answer, are correct in one or other way. Okay, but in general, if you talk about, every one of you have given the correct answer. The perspective was different, but was exactly the answer that we were looking out for. So in general, if you talk about, variable is a storage. Variable is basically a storage. Now, what is storage? So let's say I have laptop with me, right? I have a laptop, which is generally a value. That means I have some properties, which is known as a laptop. To to store this property as a laptop, I need some kind of place. Either I need a backpack bag, or I need a table to store the laptop, and that will be a safe over there, right? So that storage, wherever we are trying to store, is known as a variable, and the value that we have put on the table, let's say put on the table. What did we put on the table is a laptop. So laptop becomes a value, and the table becomes over here is storage, which is storing my value. What value? The laptop over here, and that becomes the variable. Something which is having something which is basically working as a storage, which stores some kind of things. It can be anything. It can be any visual things. It can be any virtual things as well. But whatever it stores something is known as a variable. So variable is a storage which store either a single or a multiple variables. So in terms of programming language, a variable is a storage which basically stores either a single variable or a multiple variable. Okay, now you might be wondering, okay, how come a variable will be able to store a multiple variable, right? So at the time of data types, when we start learning data types, we'll check like what is known as a multiple variables. Okay, so single variable, we always know that we'll create a variable as we have created over here earlier, like const a equals to 10, right? So that becomes a variable which is storing a single value. Now, whenever we'll be going for object kind of things, object or there used to be two types of data type. One is primitive and non-primitive, right? So whenever we go for learning non-primitive data type, at that point of time, we'll see a variable, we'll be creating a variable which will multiple values. And that can be string, which consists of multiple characters. What is strings? This variable that we have written is a string. You just represent inside a single quote or double quote, and that becomes a string. Now, what is this string? If you carefully see, it is a combination of characters, right? That means it consists of multiple characters. Now, whenever we go for array to declare an array or to work with array, we'll see like array will consist of more than one element. Okay, again, when we go for declaration of object will consist of more than one element. But that will also be a variable itself, a variable which will store multiple values. Here, currently we are talking about just a normal variable. Either it stores a single value or a multiple value, but just a variable. Variable is a storage which stores either a single value or a multiple value. Example, let a equals to 10. Okay, this becomes 10 is a value over here, a is a variable, and using the assignment operator, equal to symbol that you see over here is known as assignment operator. Assignment operator is helpful for help is basically helping us to assign the value to a variable. Left hand side of equal to symbol is known as variable, and right hand side of equal to symbol is known as values. Okay, let's forget about what is this keyword that we have declared over here for now. So this is known as a variable that we have declared having a value known as 10. So this 10 is a value which have been stored inside a variable A. Okay, so this is known as a variable that we have created over here. Now, how do we declare a variable in JavaScript and TypeScript? Whenever I try to use a JavaScript and TypeScript, that means in both of the programming language, whatever or however we are trying to go will be exactly same. There will not be any kind of difference. Whenever we come across any kind of difference, I'll show you the example for the TypeScript as well. Okay. So in this session, in this batch, earlier I have given like either a TypeScript or a JavaScript, but in this batch, I'll try to complete both JavaScript and TypeScript programming language. Okay, now there are different ways in which we can declare a variable in JavaScript and TypeScript. There are different ways. So there are three keywords that this programming language has given to declare a variable. One is var. Var is a keyword which is helping us to declare a variable. Another is known as let, and last one is known as a const. Every keyword is having some kind of significance. It is not something that directly we can use some or other keyword that we see over here. So every keyword is having some kind of significance over here in terms of programming language, which is JavaScript and TypeScript. But when can we use var? When can we use let? When can we use const? I'll explain in detail. Now, regarding the var, in terms of modern JavaScript language, in modern JavaScript and TypeScript. That means what is modern, which is known as ECMA 6 ES6 engine. That is also known as ECMAScript 6, which have been introduced in 2015. Since 2015, everyone started not using var keyword. Before 2015, there were only one keyword that was available inside a JavaScript and TypeScript to declare a variable. Now, after that, it has not been deprecated, but it is very less used. In modern JavaScript and TypeScript, we never use this keyword. What is this keyword? A var keyword. We never use var keyword to declare a variable. Var to declare a variable. Now, why do we not use? Why I'm saying like this kind of things? I'll also give you the example for that. Let keyword is used whenever we know that the value of the variable can be changed. That means whenever we try to declare a variable which is not constant, whenever we declare a variable which is not constant, which is not a constant, that means if we know that the value of the variable can be changed at later point of time, example, let a equals to 10, and later on a can become, let's say, 50. If we know this kind of things can happen in the programming or in terms of a testing perspective, at that point of time, we can use a let keyword to declare a variable. Okay, and you might have already guessed what is the use of const. So whenever we try to declare a constant variable, const keyword is used to declare a constant variable. Whenever we try to declare a constant variable, at that point of time, we can use this const keyword to declare a variable. Okay, how do we declare? I'll just explain in next couple of minutes. So this keyword, this basically const keyword is used to declare a constant variable. What is constant variable? The value of the variable will never get changed. However, you have declared that will never get changed is known as a constant variable, which will always be the same. And that is known as constant variable. Okay. Now, every keywords that we have seen over here, which is var, let, and const, have some kind of significance and some kind of properties. Okay. So let's go through one by one. How do we declare a variable? By using var, let, and const. Let's start with a var keyword. So whenever we declare a variable using a var keyword, to declare a simple, like to declare a variable, the syntax to declare a variable is either you use var, let, or const. The syntax are same for all. So the syntax to declare a variable is keyword. The keyword can be, just ignore my spelling mistake over here. And you can see the logic. So keyword can be either var, let, or const. So this is, first we have to provide a keyword and then provide a variable name. And we have to use an assignment operator. Equal symbol that we see over here is known as an assignment operator. And for this value, we can assign a value over here. So this is how we declare a variable in terms of JavaScript and TypeScript. Example we are currently trying to use. We are first discussing regarding the var keyword over here, right? So we are trying to discuss var keyword over here first. So whenever we try to declare a variable using var, we'll use a keyword which is var, and then let's say a variable name is I equals to some value, let's say JavaScript. I'll just say it as JS. Okay, so this is a variable that we have declared over here. Now do not worry like what kind of data type we have used over here. As you see the syntax, we do not require data type of the variable to be declared over here. We do not need the data type of a variable to be declared over here. In terms of Java, we declare it in this way, which is int a equals to 10. That means we are saying that we are trying to declare a variable a, which will only accept the integer value. If you say it as a string, then it has to be the string variable, right? Whereas in terms of JavaScript, we do not require any data type to be declared over here to work with creation of a variable. But then you might be having a question, okay, how do we know that what kind of data type we have stored over here? So for that also, there are different ways. One simple and very simple way is you can just hover over on the variable name. You just go and hover on the variable name. It will say that what kind of data type that you have stored a value over here as. That is why JavaScript is known as a dynamically programming language, where you do not have to declare what kind of variable that you are trying to declare. Depending on the value that you have declared for a variable, it will automatically identify what is the data type of the variable that we have declared over here. If you again hover over on this, it has changed to number. Again, if you try to give like true, it changes to a Boolean over here. So depending on the value that you are trying to provide over here, the data type will automatically be decided by the JavaScript. Okay. So this is how we generally declare a variable using var keyword. Now there are different properties for a var keyword. The first one is known as scoping. So there will generally be a two type of variable. There will be a two types of variable. One is local variable and other will be a global variable. Okay, local variable and global variable. And that is what known as scope of a variable. We are trying to discuss the scope of the var keyword. Whenever we try to use a var keyword to declare a variable, what is the scope of that? So whenever we declare a variable using a var keyword, whenever we declare a variable using a var keyword, the scope will be global in nature. The scope will be global by default. By default, the scope will be global. But if you try to declare a variable inside the function in JavaScript and TypeScript, whenever you try to declare a variable inside the function by using a var keyword, this variable will have a local scope to a function itself. Okay, so there will be two type of scope for var keywords whenever we try to declare a variable using var keyword. One, as we have declared over here, var I equals to 10, this becomes a global scope variable that is also known as a global variable. Now, what is meant by global variable and what is meant by local variable, right? So global variable is something which you can use at any point of time inside your file. Now, what is meant by any point of time? So let's say we are trying to create a function over here. Okay, we are trying to create a function. Do not worry, how are we trying to create a function over here? Inside this function also you can try to print, try to use this variable. Let's say I'm just trying to print this variable that we have declared over here. Because it is having a global scope, it is free to utilize at any point of time. Either you use inside a curly braces, or you use inside a function, or you use inside any of the statement if you are trying to use if statement. Inside that also you will be able to utilize this variable that you have declared using a var keyword, which is outside of the function. Whenever you try to declare a variable by using a var keyword outside of the function is having a scope as global variable. Now, if you try to run this file, you will see like var I that we have declared, which is again at global level. How do we know it as global level? Because we did not declare the variable at a function level. Inside a function, we did not declare this particular variable. Interrupt me anytime whenever you feel that you are unable to understand anything over here. Variables.js. Now, this we have not called. Let's call the function over here as well with the name as fun. Now you'll see both of the places it will print 10 and 10. Why? Because we are able to use this inside this function as well as inside this if statement as well, the similar variable that we have declared over here, right? Because it is having a scope as global. So if any variable that we have declared outside of the function by using a var keyword, that variable will have a scope as global scope. But if you try to declare a variable which is inside the function by using a var keyword, then this variable is known as a local scope variable or a local variable. Whenever you try to declare a variable by using a var keyword inside a function, that variable will have a scope as local variable. Now, what is meant by local variable? Local variable you cannot access outside of the function, outside of the curly braces. Whatever the inside whatever the curly braces that you have declared a variable, you cannot use this variable outside of the curly braces over here. That means after end of this curly braces of this particular function, you will not be able to use this var a that we have declared. You can use this inside the function wherever you have declared, but if you try to use it outside of the function, let's say you try to say it as console.log a over here, okay, console.log a over here, you will not be able to get the value for this. This will throw us an error. This will give an error over here. Let's see why. So it is saying a is not defined. Why it is throwing us an error? Because the variable that we are trying to access outside of a function is a local variable, which is having a scope limited to the starting curly braces and ending of the curly braces. After the end of the curly braces of this function, you will not be able to use this variable, and that is what known as local variable. Okay, so scope, whenever we try to declare a variable by using a var keyword, scope will be a global if you declare it outside of the function. If you try to declare it inside of the function, then scope will be local scope. Okay, now second that we have is in terms of a variable, like there are different types of things. So whenever you try to declare a variable, the second property that we have for var keyword is whenever you try to like variable declared using a var keyword, variable declared using a var keyword that we have just used previously. whenever you try to declare a variable using a var keyword, it can be redeclared and can also be reinitialized. Okay, now let's try to understand these two terminologies. One is redeclared and second is reinitialized. So whenever we try to declare a variable using a var keyword, we can redeclare the same variable multiple times. We can redeclare the same variable multiple times. What is meant by redeclaration? The same variable you can again redeclare over here. Let I equals to 20. Let I equals to 20. Again, you can declare the same variable by using a var keyword. Let I equals to 30. So this is also allowed in terms of whenever you try to create a variable by using a var keyword. Okay, so if you try to declare a variable using a var keyword, you can redeclare the same variable multiple times, as we have done over here. I equals to 10, I equals to 20, I equals to 30. But the value of the variable will be accepted as the last value that you have declared over here. If you try to print over here as I, then you will see that it will print the value as 30. Earlier it was printing 10. Now this will print us a value as 30 over here. Let me comment this because it will throw us an error because it is local. But if you see over here, this is returning us a value as 30. Okay, so this is also allowed in terms of whenever you try to declare a variable using a var keyword. This is known as redeclaration. This is known as redeclaration. The same variable you can declare multiple times is known as redeclaration. Okay, now what is reinitialization? Reinitialization means you can declare a variable and you can also change the value of the variable. Let's say you have declared a var I equals to 30. And if you try to change the value of the variable, it is also accepted over here. That means you can also reinitialize the value of the variable, which is you can change the value of the variable at any point of time. Now I will become 40 over here because we have changed it. We have reinitialized the value. This is not known as redeclaration. Redeclaration means the complete syntax that we have to write over here. Reinitialization means just change the value of the variable. So now in this case, you will see this is 40, 40, and this 30 is coming from this one. So let me change it to 50, else you'll get confused that we have a 30 over here. So 40, 40, and 40 it is displaying over here as a I, whatever the latest value that we have declared. That is what the second property we have is variable declared using a var keyword can be redeclared and can also be reinitialized. Now the third property that we have in terms of var keyword is it is not mandatory. It is not mandatory to assign the value of the variable, to assign the value of the variable at the time of declaration. Value of the variable at the time of declaration. Now what is meant by that? That means it is saying that you can also declare a variable, let's say var j, and there is no need to assign the value at this point of time. At this point of time, there is no need to assign the value. As we have not assigned any value, so this j will give the value as undefined. That means as we have not defined any value over here. And whenever you try to use this value, whenever you try to store the value of the variable, that will become the values of j. So it is not mandatory at the time of, it is not mandatory to assign the value of a variable at the time of declaration. Okay, at the time of declaration, we do not require to assign the value of a variable. Now, why I am trying to declare this, that you will come to know when we start discussing about the const keyword. Okay. So this is again pretty simple, which is also acceptable because, okay, this is okay. I'll declare just a variable and value of the variable I can assign. But why I'm trying to declare this, that you will come to know when we try to discuss const keyword. Okay, so
Just
this is
one question, Praveen, over there.
Yes.
the reinitialization and redeclaration on the global variable will take the latest variable value, and that property will remain the same if you take that variable inside local variable, like inside the function. Same
Yes. So
property.
whatever. So you are saying I equals to 50 over here.
Yeah. Similarly, what you have done on the global level, if we do the same thing inside the function in a local variable, will it remain the same?
You mean where I equals to again 50? This
Yeah,
kind?
like how you reinitialize like 50 to 40 or 20, whatever. Does it take the
Right.
latest?
This will take the similar things, the latest
Same.
one itself.
Okay.
This will also be applicable.
Okay.
Okay. So this will again keep the similar things. But you know what happened over here? Let's see. Let's try to print the value. We are trying to print the value over here as I equal this I we are trying to print over here. This I we are trying to print over here. And this I we are trying to print over here. Let's see what is happening in this case.
It takes the priority as global, maybe.
A we have where do we have A? A we have not defined. So let's so here it has declared a 40, here it has declared a 50, and here it has declared a 40, which is completely okay. Which is again completely okay. So let and const I'll declare in the next session, but let's try to see why did I say that a var keyword in modern JavaScript and TypeScript we do not use. It will just take 5 minutes to give us the conclusion why do we not use var keyword nowadays in terms of JavaScript and TypeScript. Okay, so let's declare a variable. I'll say it as not let, but var flag equals to true. Okay, I've declared a variable which is flag equals to a Boolean value which is true. Okay, and also trying to declare a variable, let's say I equals to 0. And I'm trying to write a condition. As per the definition of the var, we understood that whenever we declare a variable, outside of the function will be having a global scope, and inside of a function will be having a local scope. Okay, inside of a function will be having a local scope for var keyword, and outside of a function will be having a global scope. So we have declared a variable which is flag over here. This is having a global scope. This is having a global scope. That means a global variable. Now what I'm trying to say is I'm trying to write a condition using if, and I'm saying that if I is let's say greater than, let's declare 10 over here. That will give something over here. Let's I is greater than 5. So we are trying to write a condition. Whoever have not gone through with the programming earlier, do not worry what we are trying to write. We are trying to write a statement which accepts some kind of condition. And whatever the condition that we are trying to write, it will either return true or false. So this will become 10 is greater than 5 or not. So it will return true, right? So what we are trying to say is if I is greater than 5, okay, if I is greater than 5, then go inside the variable, whatever the variable that we are trying to use, and declare a local variable again over here and make it as a false. Okay, so what I'm saying is if I, the variable that we have declared over here, if this I is greater than 5, then it will go inside this if statement and will create another variable which we basically think this is a local variable. And this is also a local variable as we have declared inside a curly braces, right? So what did we do is we are just trying to say that the variable that we have used, that we have declared inside a variable that we have declared inside this if statement, we are trying to print over here. So we have declared a variable flag having a name as true, and we have declared the similar variable where flag equals to false over here. Because we know that whenever we try to declare anything inside a curly braces, that will be considered as a local variable. And here we are trying to print again the value of the variable that we have declared over here. Now again, I'm trying to print the similar value over here, which is flag. Okay, so this is a global variable this is a local variable that we have stored inside a if condition, inside the curly braces. Now let's try to print, let's try to execute and see what is happening over here. Let's try to execute the same thing. And if you see over here, this is a local variable. This is a local variable that we have declared over here, which will print as a value, whatever the value that we have declared inside this statement. Now, this is the value, this is the flag that we are trying to print, which we have declared at a global level. But this value have also returned us false value. This value has also returned us false value. Now, what did you understand with this? This means, as per the definition, it says that whenever you try to declare a variable inside a function, that means this is a function. Whenever you see something having a function keyword, that is a function in terms of JavaScript and TypeScript. So whenever you try to declare a variable inside a function, then only it will be considered as a local variable. But if you are trying to do inside a looping concept, inside a statement, that will never be considered as a local value. And that value, whatever the value that we declare inside a statement or inside a loop, will override the global value that we have declared using var keyword. That will override the value of a global variable. So thinking that, let's say if we, as we have declared this variable, a global variable, we can use this variable at multiple places. And whenever we try to use a later point of time, this will always give us a false value. And our code may, whatever the code that we write, might become broken over there. Application that will be developed using JavaScript might behave in a different way. And that is only the reason why var keywords is not being utilized anytime now in terms of JavaScript and TypeScript. Okay, because it overrides the global variable that we declared at global level using var keyword. That is only the reason we nowadays we do not use, and that is only the reason the two other keywords, which is known as let and const, came into picture in 2015. Before 2015, there were only one keyword available, which was var. And due to this kind of condition, there used to be many failure in terms of the application, in terms of the coding. And that's where they introduced let and const. And after that, var keyword are not being utilized in terms of JavaScript and TypeScript. Okay.
Does
So
the same
that,
thing? Does it do the same thing if we write it inside a function?
inside the function, it will work inside the function, it will work in the same way.
Okay.
Not in this way, but as it has to work. Like this will consider a local variable, and this will be considered as a global variable. So that will not override.
Only in the loops.
Only in the loops, in the statement, whenever we try to write inside a curly braces other than function. In that way, it behaves in a weird way. And that is where the var keyword is not being utilized in terms of JavaScript and TypeScript to declare a variable.
Okay.
Okay, so that is it. Then I'll stop the session over here, and we'll move towards you people. If you have any kind of questions, if you try to understand anything over here today, let me know. I'll try to give you the answer. Again, are you? I mean, do any one of you are new to the session today? I believe I am familiar with all the names over here. Okay, so I'll just over to you people if you have any
Myself,
questions.
Shweta. Today only I have joined. Shweta here.
Shweta, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So also, I believe few of you have definitely might have received the document from the people, from the people whoever you are in contact with. I'm sure like few of them, you should have received the document as I promised earlier. Okay.
Yes.
Not received.
Okay, so you will receive very soon. You can reach to whoever you are in contact with, and they'll share you the access. I don't know if you are trying to say anything.
Yes, sir. What document are you talking about, sir?
The document regarding JavaScript,
I'm
Playwright,
not
and
getting
LoadRunner.
any. I'm a.
You'll
I'm
receive.
this. Mhm.
You will receive it soon. You can connect with the person whoever you are in contact with, and they'll provide you the access.
Yeah. Okay.
So great. I see I see a couple of questions over here. If this file is under a folder node, under the folder node, file name is not recognized the file. Not if I move out of the folder, also it is throwing us an error. So Deepa, you are I just would like to see like how did you declare, and then probably I will be able to comment it out. You are using string. You are using for string. There are Vandana, so we can declare a string by either using a single quote or double quote. We'll see again in our other part of our session whenever we go for data type. At that point of time, we'll see like there are three ways in which we can declare string in JavaScript and TypeScript. I did not get any document you will receive. You can connect with the person, whoever you are in contact with. I am not able to see the output in the terminal. For the console.log, you have to use console.log. If you have used the similar things, then you just have to change to console, SOLE.
Yeah,
And this
I used
should
it
be
actually. I did use
okay.
console.log, but
Right. So there are one more option. Okay, let me show you that as well over here. So which one is that file? This one. So probably what will happen, what used to happen is, let's say I am just changing something or I'm trying to add something over here. Are you able to see this kind of circle over here inside your file?
if you change something,
This, right, whenever you change something or whenever you type something,
yeah,
are
I'm
you
seeing
able to see
it's
this circle? Right.
yes, I'm
So
seeing a circle,
you
but
have,
it's white.
You can see that. Yeah.
right, right, right. So what you have to do is you have to just save your file. You have to just save your file and then try to execute the code. Save the file by using Control and S. If you do not want to use this control S every time to save the file, you can simply go to a file menu option over here inside the Visual Studio Code. Go to file menu option and click on autosave. Click on
Okay.
autosave. You can see like I have just entered and it is throwing this one. And now I'm trying to just say that autosave. And even if I click anything, it will auto save the file. So that kind of error you will not get. Probably you can try to execute this and hopefully you will get the answer this time.
Yeah,
Yeah, and also
thanks.
the path. I think the path also need to be set in the command because it's saying one of the errors module not found. We need to put the file name and folder name as well in the command line.
Yeah. The autosave
Right.
worked.
If you are not inside the folder, then you have to pass the folder name as well. That is what earlier I said. CD and then folder name I have used over here. That is what I'm expecting that this issue might be for Deepa, I believe. For Deepa, I'll connect with you just after our session. But I believe like you have to just move to the folder and then provide the node and file name. Okay, you just have to move to the folder wherever you are trying to store your JavaScript file, and then you will be able to store that value. So how do you move to the folder? CD and then folder name.
I had the
CD space folder name.
same error. I didn't use the CD directory, but I mentioned the directory name as well. Node
Directory name.
yeah, as
Right.
well. Yeah.
So there
It's
are two
working.
ways.
Yeah.
Right. So there are two ways. One is, see, I'll just move out of this. So CD dot dot. That means I came to this Playwright and whatever I have given the folder name. Now, if I have to execute this variable things, then I'll be writing something like this: node, then provide the folder name, which is JavaScript / and then variables.js. Now, this will also work in the same way. This is one way. If you are not inside this particular folder, wherever you are trying to write JavaScript file, then you have to provide the path of the file in this way. Else, you can move to the folder. How do you move to the folder? By using CD and then give the folder name over here, which is JavaScript. That means now we move to this particular folder. You see the folder structure over here. Now I am inside JavaScript, and here you can simply type node and then variables.js. That means the file name. So these are two ways in which you can try to run your file. Okay, so any other question from anyone else? Yes, Kavita, I see from you. Great, thanks, Sachin.
So to recap, if we see like variable, let and constant, let is we will be declaring a variable which is not a constant, right?
Do not worry, Kavita. For this one, I'll again discuss in our next session because let and constant is still available. Yes, if I just recap all these things, then var will never be using let. Whenever you think that the value of the variable are getting changed or can get changed, at that point of time, you can use let. If you are trying to declare a variable which is constant in nature, that means the value will never get changed. At that point of time, we can use const keyword to declare a variable.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Anything else from anyone else?
Would you be able to create the JavaScript another folder under the main one? Just real quick.
Sorry, I didn't get you. Can you please repeat?
Under the Playwright, can you create one more folder like Java, the way you created?
Okay, so how do we create a folder? See, first thing you have to come out of, you have to click on the blank space over here.
Okay.
Or you can just click on the blank space so that you'll come into the root folder of this particular folder. There are two options. One is you can go to file menu option and click on add folder to workspace. This is again a bit complex. Instead of that, what you can do is you can click on blank space and then click on this option. There are three different options. One is new file, new folder, and refresh explorer.
Yeah.
Okay. So by clicking on this, you should be able to create a folder. Okay. Anything else from anyone else over here? No worries, Lakshmi. No worries, Lakshmikant. We'll check it out if you have any kind of issues over here. Okay, that's it then. Thanks a lot, everyone, for joining. And again, we'll continue in the next session with the next topic that we have taught today.